Ladies and gentlemen, today's episode of Academy of Shred is about, well, shred. What you are about to witness during the next 1.5 hours is a live stream in which our shred maestro, Emmanuel Noor, will guide you through 5 essential shred techniques for modern shred guitar. But before we begin, you will witness a 6-minute compilation of guitar work Emmanuel has recorded over the past couple of years. Warning: the following footage contains excessive amounts of alto picking, legato, tapping, sweep picking, and dangerously high note density. All guitar tones were created by reamping clean DI tracks using the Amp 1 Iridium and Amp 1 Mercury edition. No vintage tube amps were harmed during the production of this video. Now, even if you are a beginner guitarist, do not be afraid. Some of the demonstrations may appear intimidating. Some passages may sound like someone accidentally dropped the guitar down the staircase at 240 beats per minute. But listen carefully. Emmanuel will also break these techniques down for those who are not fully evolved shredders yet. If you are willing to learn, you will learn. If you do not like shred guitar, this may be your final warning. This is your last chance to leave the train before we enter the path of shred. Because once you enter the dark side of guitar playing, there's no turning back. Suddenly, you will start practicing scales for 6 hours a day. You will develop strong opinions about pick angles. You will spend unreasonable amounts of money on guitars with suspiciously many frets. This is how it begins. Still here? Very well. Fasten your seatbelt. Engage maximum picking velocity. We are entering full throttle mode in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello everyone and welcome at the BluGuitar YouTube channel. My name is Emmanuel and today is gonna be all about shred. It's Academy of Shred time, baby, and that's a very, very cool thing. I've been missing you for the last couple of weeks. Last time that it was my turn for the live stream, I did a video about AI, which apparently some of you did like, right? So yeah, it's cool to be back live. And today is going to be a very, very special episode for me because it's all about shred guitar. And we don't find a topic that is somehow connected to shred guitar, but we just talk about shred guitar today. So I named this episode 5 Essential Shred Guitar Techniques. And this is exactly what we're going to do. So it will have a quite educational nature, this episode. And perhaps some of you who are not into shred guitar yet, or who are trying to shred, but are still at the beginning of this style of playing, right? There may be lots of valuable information. If you are slightly more advanced, some of the stuff that I'm going to talk about today may sound repetitive to you because you already know it. In that case, leave me a comment, and I can also, take some time to go into more advanced techniques. But, the general layout for today is certainly for, let's say, beginner guitar players, right? Or beginner shred guitar players, let's put it that way. So I'm hoping that everyone's doing well and that everyone's doing great. Please, let me know in the comment section how you guys are doing, right? And I'd say that we now go into the first technique that I want to talk about, which is alternate picking. Alternate picking is a very essential guitar technique, even if you are not shredding. So let me show you what I'm playing right now. Right now I'm on the Mercury. And this is how it looks. So I'm on this amp. No of these pedals are activated. It's just the amp, a little bit of reverb, and then no boost, at least not now. And yeah, that's what I'm playing through a DI, custom DI of mine. All right, so this is how my amp does sound right now. So not too crazy yet with gain and stuff, right? Some healthy amount of gain is there, but not the 100% fluid, easy to play sound. So this sound. Oh, let me also get rid of the reverb for right now. Right, so we have a dry sound that is cool for showcasing and explaining bits and pieces about the technique. Alternate picking. Why is it such an important technique? Because it is, I'd say, the most essential, the most easiest to understand, the most useful, but at the same time, the hardest picking technique that exists. So technically, alternate picking is not a technique that is designed for solo shredding. However, it is designed to play faster, let's say, faster passages, right? It's a technique where it's not only about expression, but where efficiency also plays a role. So alternate picking basically consists of 2 different picking techniques, one of which is downstrokes, right? Which just means hitting the string, from an upper position and then doing a downwards movement like this. Right, so like this, that's down picking or downstrokes, and then we also have upstrokes, which means that we do an upward movement. So. Feels weird if you do that. If you only do that, I mean, doing downstrokes is slightly more intuitive, right? Because it's just a movement where physics really helps. Just doing a downwards movement. I mean that's something we do every day. We also do upwards movement, but we have to work against the physics then, right? This is a slightly more relaxed movement where the weight of our hand and everything supports us, right? So that's why a lot of guitar players feel very comfortable with downstrokes, and this is usually the first way that we learn when we start playing the guitar. That's the first way we learn, considering picking techniques. All right, so alternate picking. I mean, it means that we alternate between those two techniques: downstroke, upstroke, downstroke, upstroke, downstroke, upstroke. Doesn't matter, what you're playing. So it can be pentatonics, right? So I do very big movements right now. I mean, don't do that at home. This is not the proper way to play, but I just wanted to showcase. I mean, this movement, right? Up and down strokes, rotating, and you can also use it for 3-note per string stuff. Right? So all of this works with alternate picking. Now, let me explain advantages, or what I think are advantages and disadvantages about this technique. So certainly, on the advantage side, there is the momentum that you gain, the speed that you can develop with it. Rather than doing only downstrokes, alternate picking is certainly more efficient, as you're performing a downstroke, we anyway need to basically go the same path. So we need to bring the string in a position where we can do a downstroke, which is above the string, right? And as we are doing this anyway, right, alternate picking is basically using that movement that you would do anyway, right, in order to place another pick stroke. So that is something that is actually, quite efficient, isn't it? At the same time, having this rotating movement, right, we can certainly play quite expressive with alternate picking as well. So it's something that sounds quite hard, and where you can, certainly focus certain strokes, right, to add expression to your playing as well, especially on the downstrokes, right? That's something where you can really, dig in and thereby also control the sound a little bit. Mentally, it's a very easy to understand technique, right? Doesn't mean it's easy to perform. I said it's very hard to perform, and I don't really like alternate picking, but we'll talk about that later as a player. So it's quite hard to perform, and we'll go into reasons why that is. But mentally, it's very easy to understand. Up, down, up, down, up, down. Doesn't matter the notes on the guitar. Doesn't matter what you play. Up, down, up, down, up, down, all the time, right? So essentially 2 rotating movements, and that's nothing. That's not a rocket science to understand that. Now, what are disadvantages about alternate picking? Well, first of all, it's a very hard to perform technique, and I highly respect those players who are playing everything with alternate picking. There are very few players out there who do that, right? And to name a few, well, they don't only play alternate picking, but they mainly play alternate picking, right? People like Paul Gilbert, right? He's very strong with alternate picking. People like Michelangelo Badio, right? Doing a lot of alternate picking. We have guys like the early guys like Steve Morse, for example, right? John Petrucci, for example. Those are players who mainly do alternate pick when they play fast picked lines. Doesn't mean that they don't also use other techniques, like pull-offs and sweeping and whatnot, right? But mainly, if you hear that speed picking kind of sound, that is what they usually do, alternate picking. Now, why is it such a hard technique? Let me explain that to you. And this is also a reason why I don't play alternate picking a lot. If I can avoid playing alternate picking, I do avoid it by using another technique that's called economy picking or sweep picking. We'll talk about that later. So let's just get into a scale, right? Just a standard A minor 3 notes per string scale. Right, quite an easy scale. Everyone knows that one. So we start with a downstroke traditionally, right? First note, downstroke. Second note, upstroke. Third note, downstroke. Now we want to switch strings, right? And this is the most difficult part. Usually on one string, you know, playing just fast. It's something that most guitar players can do without crazy amounts of practicing, right? And that's, you know, that's easy. Synchronizing your left and right hand, that's usually what the problem is, and this gets even more difficult when you start to change strings. So when you go from one string to another string. In this case, right, we need to fulfill movements that many people, including me, slightly don't, you know, feel comfortable with or intuitive with. So in the example we just had, downstroke, upstroke, downstroke, and now we are changing to a higher string, but it's located below the string that we've just played on. So after a downstroke, we need to get to the A string, from the string to the A string, but as we do alto picking, we need to fulfill the string change on an upstroke. Right, so down, up, down, up. So why it's changing strings to a lower string, right? Not pitch lower, but physically lower string. We need to do it on an upstroke movement. So that means that the last downstroke on the E string has to be a slightly bigger movement, because we don't need to get back on the E string. We need to go on the A string, right? So instead of this very easy movement, right, that most of you should be able to do right now, we need to do a bigger movement, going below the A string. Right, so we place our pick between A and D string in this case to do an upstroke. And that's the hard part and the counterintuitive part, right? Changing to a lower string by doing an upwards movement, right? And that's something that got me crazy when I was you know, quite young and getting to speed picking. I wanted to do speed picking so hard, but I didn't nail it because of this kind of movement, right? That I wasn't very good at, that no one's very good at if you don't practice. So that's the difficulty about this whole thing. Now, should you still play alternate picking? Well, you should certainly gain basic skills in that. With that technique, that's what most guitar players do, and you know, outside of shredding and stuff like this, right? If you want to play the funk or whatever, let me get a little more volume here on my clean channel. So you know, alt picking is always useful, like. You know, especially when you go faster, right? Right. That's something where you can utilize alto picking as well, right? On this kind of stuff as well. You know, basically strumming, right? If again, slightly funky, like. You know, that's essentially a movement that is very similar to alto picking, right? It's not alto picking in the pure sense. That's why we call it strumming, but we do up and down movements, rotating, and you know, it's essentially you know, an alto picking kind of movement, right? So it certainly is kind of. It's a lie if you say that you don't need to practice alto picking because you don't want to shred. Very useful, very essential technique on the guitar, right? Julian, thanks. I'm not a proper funk player, you know. But you know, there was a lesson of my favorite guitar player called Guthrie Given, right? And he called it circus funk, right? So it's that if you're quite fast with your right hand. You know, just muted strings with very fast outside picking bursts, and you know, placing them in between chords, right? So that's quite a cool, you know, quite a cool effect that you can gain there. But you know, proper funk is, I guess, not about the speed too much, right? It's about other things. You know, I'm not a very good funk player, but I can pretend to to do the cool funk stuff. So let's get back to gain. Now, there's another concept which is part of picking techniques that is called inside and outside picking. I'm getting to that when I'm talking about the next picking technique. But before I do so, I want to show you an exercise which I think is brilliant to gain a certain speed level with alternate picking. Because there are a couple of licks that you can't really do with economy picking, my preferred picking technique, that you can only do with alternate picking. So this is the exercise that I am going to show you, and I call this the Yngwie Malmsteen lick. Let me get rid of the noise gate because I don't have the boost activated. So. Right, that's a very, very cool exercise. It was quite fast right now, but it's certainly easy if you play it slower, and you don't need to be afraid of that if you're not a pro guitar player, whatever, right? It's a very useful lick. You can do all sorts of crazy things with it. So you can make it like, you can create scale runs. Right, this kind of stuff. You can go up and down just a string. Some weird stuff I played in the end. Well, so all of these cool sounds can be created by just this one exercise, and it's absolutely, you know, it's way easier than it sounds. So the essential lick that we would need to practice is this. In this case, right now, you know, let me shift my light a little bit so you can see more of a fretboard. So that position I did right now, very essential, you know, A minor position. So we start out with our pinky on the 8th fret. Then we lift our pinky, and the index finger, the first finger, is going to the 5th fret. And we play 7 with our ring finger, 8 again with our pinky, 7 again with the ring finger, and then 5 with the index finger. So we have it's only 6 notes. Sorry, still a little bit sick. We'll talk about that later. So 6 notes, and I'd certainly recommend to you to practice this kind of lick and to repeat it. And to try to stay in sync. It's quite hard to stay in sync with those medium tempos, you know. I mean, getting very fast, you know, at least sometimes feels a little bit easier. But those medium tempos are very hard. You know, and you know, that's something. Once you feel satisfied with how it sounds in one position, you should start moving it to another position. You can play around with different degrees of muting, right, with your right hand. That's what I very much like to do. right? And then you move it up the fretboard and down one string first of all, right? You know, that's a cool sound already. Once you feel comfortable with this kind of lick, right, you should move it up and down your scale position. So down. That's essentially everything you can do with the lick, right? So let me try to find a backing track here so I can demonstrate how that sounds in a more musical context. Like, don't expect a very musical context, expect a more musical context. Right, set this up. I'm going back to the heavy noise gate, and I'm going to activate my Tube Dreamer by Jam Pedals. This is my favorite kind of tube streamer that I use right now, at least. So it's this one. It's a very classic setting. So tone all the way up, right, and then sorry, not tone, level all the way up, tone somewhere midway, slightly, you know, on the second half, and then just a little bit of gain. And this is the sound that I very much use. This is how it sounds. Let's get back to the main cam. The backing track is set up. And let's do some Yngwie style alternate picking licks on a backing track. So we'll take this one. All right. Here we go. You know, this is a very, very, very cool. This is a very, very cool way to play the guitar, I guess. These all-head picking licks. As I said, it's not too hard to do it, right? It sounds quite hard, but it's not very, very hard to do it. And by the way, you know, I think this is a very, very cool sound, isn't it? Oh, that's the lead sound I've been playing with for the past couple of days, so really much like this. That's the Amp Mercury with the Jam Tube Dreamer. You don't absolutely need to have the Jam Tube Dreamer, but I just, you know, play around with a couple of pedals. All right, let's go to the next technique. The next technique is also a picking technique, and it's called economy picking. Economy picking is the exact opposite of alternate picking in a way that I said that alternate picking is very easy to understand, but hard to perform. And I personally feel that once you nail the technique, economy picking is quite easy to perform, but it's hard to understand. So it's not going to be as, automized as alternate picking. So with alternate picking, you don't need to think, right? Upstroke, downstroke. That's everything you do. Economy picking is different. Let me show you the difference. So remember the scale we just had, 3/0 per string scale, and we had this, we had this issue with changing to a lower string on an upstroke, which felt very, very counterintuitive. We solved this with economy picking. So downstroke, we start the same way as we start with alternate picking. We do a downstroke, we do an upstroke, we do another downstroke, and instead of doing an upstroke while we change to a lower string, we do a downstroke again. So we have 2 downstrokes in a row. Down, up, down, down. Right? And this is something that I feel home with, this kind of playing. Again, in the beginning, feels quite weird. Changing strings is very hard in the beginning, right? That's one of the biggest challenges you will face during your, speed picking journey, right? Changing across strings. So you need to have a good feeling, develop a good feeling for the amount of movement that you need to get to the next string. It's very essential to master this technique, right? So if you do 2 separate strokes, if you do like, that's not economy picking. That's more like downstrokes, separate downstrokes. You need to do almost a sweeping movement, sweep picking, another name for economy picking. You need to do a sweeping movement in order to get to the next string efficiently. So once you start making 2 movements of it, it's not economy picking, right? It's not efficient anymore. You need to develop a movement that's just enough to get to the next string. And that's what we do with all the string changes. So instead of, watch my right hand, instead of these very obvious up and down movements, we replace those through a little sweep, like. And this enables you to play, this enabled me to play these kind of licks quite fast. Right, and this is quite a cool technique, therefore. And by the way, it's the same with the other way around. So if we start on a high string, we will start on the downstroke again. We do up, down, up. Oh, we have alternate picking here. Right, that's essentially alternate picking. So in some cases you can't do sweep picking, you have to do alternate picking. The difference here is we don't have the same dilemma as when we would go from low to high. Why is that? Well, we do a downstroke, upstroke, a downstroke, then we do an upstroke. But this is not an issue anymore because we don't change to a lower string, we change to a higher string. Guitar is the other way around. Pitch is actually lower, but it's located above the high E string, the B string, right? So therefore, again, we get to do a very natural movement, right? We're changing with an upstroke in the upward direction. Right? So that's alternate picking in this case. So essentially, on some occasions, alternate picking and economy picking are the exact same thing, right? But so it works the other way around. If we would start now with an upstroke on the high string, up, down, up, we would do the same kind of movement. So we would do a double. It's called a double upstroke, right? We would need to do a bigger upstroke, right, to also cover the high, to also cover the B string, right? So you can also do it that way, and then we have, right, and once you got that down, it's a very useful technique to play these kind of scales, right? I know that playing just the scale, 3 note per string without any pattern. Well, those are picking patterns that shred players use a lot. But just playing scales without anything else. I can't do that very fast with alto picking. The max I can do is like, this is live and not fake. It's like, well, and if I go faster, I go very, very sloppy. So I can't do that with alto picking. That's the fastest I can do. With economy picking, it feels quite smooth and easier and everything. So that's why I very much like this picking technique. Gotta get used to it. But it took a bit. It's not that it's a very it's an extremely intuitive technique. It still needs some time and everything. But once you got it down, it really works, and yeah, it's just a very cool feeling. Just like playing like that. Okay. So that's the exercise that I recommend everyone to practice, right? Just playing scales with these double downstrokes when you go from low strings to high strings, pitch-wise, or from higher located strings to lower located strings, physically, and swapping, changing strings on an upstroke if you do it the other way around, right? Yeah, once you get that down, it feels quite easy to do that. Trust me. Now, a very, very cool thing that a lot of guitar players don't do, even economy pickers don't do, and I started doing a couple of years back, was 2 note per string playing with economy picking. Guys like Eric Johnson, for instance, did this kind of thing back in the 70s, or when was his prime? 70s, 80s, something like this, right? But for example, players like who are known for playing fast pentatonic picking riffs, like for example Zakk Wylde, right? I was a big Zakk Wylde fan in my teens, and still am. And when I see him pentatonic, I see like him doing very, very big movements. And not saying that's bad. It's very expressive and everything, but I wasn't able to do that, right? So if I play pentatonic Zakk Wylde licks with alto picking, it's like. It's getting sloppy when it's getting faster, and I also don't get too fast with it, to be honest. This is the fastest I can go where it's not too sloppy. So auto picking up and down, right? We got through that. Now you can. It looks weird. It sounds weird. But you can do the same thing with economy picking. And this is how it goes. So it's still funny to date. Until today, I don't believe that I didn't do this in my youth. So we have 2 downstrokes, 2 upstrokes. So it's like up, down, down, up, down, down. And this is something that certainly shows how cool it can be to play pentatonic lines with economy picking. All right, again, same thing. I turn on the gain. Right, and you can also do it with a whole. This is more like Eric Johnson. It's all economy picking, right? And we can add some additional notes. like play around with it a little bit, like add the blue. You know, I just love playing like that. Okay, let's do the same thing again. So I'm getting back to my backing track and do some economy picking around those licks that I've just showed you. So it feels a bit forced when I play that, you know. But I guess you get the point, right? It can result in some very, very cool fast lines. All right, that was alternate picking. That was economy picking second. Now we have 3 more techniques to cover for tonight. But before we get into those, right? Before we get into those, I want to show you another clip. So it's actually an old clip. I think we've shown it in one of the streams before, but I thought it just suits the topic of today. So this is me and Thomas, right? Thomas on the Guitar Summit at the BluGuitar booth, and we hang out there. We did a lot of video filming and workshops and all of this, right? And at some point, you know, we decided to just do a cool shred jam session, and we recorded it. And this is what I'm going to show to you right now.
spielen, kann ich ein bisschen was dazu erzählen. Zwischen diesen Kreaturen habe ich mich also bewegt die letzten 40 Jahre und musste dann irgendwann auch verstehen, die Nomenklatur. Ich möchte hier ein bisschen mehr Gzz und da ein bisschen mehr Hö. Spielt einfach weiter. Dann habe ich mir das immer angehört, was sie spielen, habe versucht, das zu verstehen. Und irgendwie habe ich es geschafft, weil ich ja auch viel live gespielt habe, diese merkwürdigen Beschreibungen in Pickups zu verwandeln. Und alle haben ein Lächeln auf dem Gesicht. Ist das herrlich?
All right, here we are back. And yeah, that was a cool moment at Guitar Summit. I keep remembering that. You know, let me tell you this. Last week I've been in Saarbrücken for 4 days. So that's the place where BluGuitar is home, where Thomas is home, where we have the company and everything. And we had a very good time. We did do some content, you know, do a little bit metal sounds with amp-backs and stuff like this. It was a very good time. We have had a cool vibe going on, Thomas and me. We did a lot of, you know, jamming as well. At some point, you know, Thomas blew up a speaker just to demonstrate to me how a speaker sounds before it dies. So that was crazy. 4 days from early morning until night, you know, just working, doing stuff, videos, and it was so cool. All right. And now I'm back, and not even I have an Amp-X yet. So because I see people writing about Amp-X in the comments again, right? It's gonna be a great amp. I had the pleasure to play a 5150 style sounds last week, and that was a blast. So before we go on with the 3 techniques that are left, right, I want to go quickly through the comments. Because there may be some questions. So if you do have questions, don't be shy. Just ask. I'm here to do that. All right. I'm getting a cramp in my right forearm just watching. Karsten, that remember the first time you picked up the guitar and played chords and stuff like this. I started out playing chords, A minor, D major, whatever, and it hurt so much after I was done with playing. And my skin, it's that skin on my fingers right now, and I think every guitar player knows that, right? At some point you don't really feel pain anymore unless I play the acoustic for a day. Then I cry like a baby. But anyway, it's the same with picking, right? It does look quite physical, but essentially the art behind that is to not be too physical about that, to make light move and stuff like that. So it's not as it seems. That's what I'm trying to tell you. And yeah, remember the first A minor chord you played on the guitar, fingers hurt, and suddenly at some point the pain was all gone. It's the same with picking essentially. So don't be afraid of that. And then I've seen a lot of discussion about Fender, and I heard something, and I've seen some reels and stuff like this. But I'd like to comment that. But first of all, I didn't inform myself too much, so I'm not too knowledgeable about the topic. As I said, I was in Saarbrücken and I came home and I had lots of stuff to do with the live stream, so I didn't really research the topic, and I don't want to make comments that I regret later based on some rumors that I heard. So maybe next time. All right. Some people say that economy picking is very impressive, and I agree, right? This is why I keep practicing economy picking instead of alternate picking, because it just works better for me. Cool approach. People cheer, people very much try, very much like economy picking, and that's something I very like, because a lot of people don't know, let's not say a lot of people, a lot of beginner or non-shred guitar players, they don't really know too much about economy picking. It's a very cool technique. We should promote it more. We should play it. We should use it. I love it. All right. If you have questions, feel free to ask them, and I'm going to do my best to answer those. Once you do that, we are going on with the next technique. So the next technique is called sweep picking. Now we have to talk about this first. Economy picking and sweep picking is essentially the same technique. It's like the definition of it is basically getting to the next string the most efficient way possible, which can mean 2 upstrokes in a row, which can mean 2 downstrokes in a row, rather than doing this alternating movement. Now, sweep picking is essentially the same thing, but when we talk about sweeping, what we associate with it is not this. It was sweep picking, but people don't associate this kind of lick with sweep picking. Also this. That was sweep picking. But again, people don't associate that with sweep picking. What we associate with sweep picking is something like this. Oh, well, that was horrible. Something like this. These kind of movements where we really have a visible sweep, right, across multiple strings. So what I tend to say, if I'm talking about this in university and teaching my students and everything, I tell them that sweep picking is essentially 1 note per string economy picking. So we had 3 note per string economy picking, we had 2 note per string economy picking, and sweeping is 1 note per string economy picking. So it's traditionally used a lot for arpeggios, this kind of movement, and when we talk about economy picking, can use it for all sorts of playing and scales. Sweep picking, well, it's hard. The traditional associated sweep picking, right? It's hard to do anything else but arpeggios with it, because we have to cross strings. So crossing strings means that we have, a larger interval than a second usually. It doesn't make sense to play anything like lower than that while crossing strings, right? So playing a second as an interval, it's like, this kind of movement. So, one would go, right? You usually don't do that when you're kind of getting fast and everything. So basically, playing arpeggios is something that once you get to it, when you get to a certain speed, you can't really come across sweeping when you're into like fusion and metal and these kind of genres. Now, let me show you how it basically works. So it's almost like strumming, but with, let's say, a more synchronized movement, because with strumming you usually have lots of strings, right, that you can hit, and it doesn't matter if you don't hit one string perfectly the way you meant it to, because you're hitting 3, 4, 5 strings anyway. With sweeping you have to be in sync, and this is the hard part of it, right? So let me show you a very, very cool exercise, right, to get sweeping down, something that's very, very easy as well. So there was an ABBA song. Everyone knows the band ABBA, right? And they had this kind of this kind of line in one of their songs. I don't remember it, but that's something that that is actually sweeping, but also some of the blues players do, like. That's nothing too crazy, but it's still a very good exercise for sweeping. So essentially what we do is just a bar, right? We bar, like, let's go back to E minor, right? We do E minor pentatonic, and then we bar the G string, the B string, and the E string, 12th fret. So, right? And when we can add another note, like the root note, right? And go to the 14th fret in that case on the D string. So ring finger 14th fret. When you play it slowly, you really need to pay attention to muting, because if you don't do that, you have this, right? So we should try and mute those strings that we left behind. Right? To get a more refined sound, but if you're faster, you can have some slight note bleeding with a bar. That's not too big of an issue in that case, right? So just like a strum, very easy to do, because the left hand is less of a problem here. We can do it the other way around. That's a lick that Thomas showed me last week when I was like, "Hey, show me some blues licks. I really like the way you play, but I can't do it." And then there was this lick, like, sure, I'll play it wrong, but that's essentially the same technique. Yeah, right, and you can basically do that with every arpeggio shape that you know. So you can do. Something I really like to do, it's slightly harder because of, it's not all with a bar. So once you get left hand synchronization, shapes that require some left hand synchronization, right? It's getting essentially harder, but same technique. So this is how you get started with sweeping. Right, and then what I did when I was younger is I was starting out practicing these 3-string arpeggios, so sweeping across 3 strings, like right, that's an E minor. Again, we have to pay attention to muting in this case, but this is again considering the left hand. If you don't consider muting too big of a deal for the beginning. Quite easy to do. So the only thing that we would add is a hammer-on and a pull-off on the high E string, where we go to the G note 15th fret. So we can do. Right, that's your E minor arpeggio, and the major one is slightly harder, but yeah, you can get started with this kind of thing, right? Hammer-on pull-off high E string, upstroke, downstroke, three downstrokes, you know. So one downstroke, one upstroke, 3 downstrokes. Right, and traditionally that's the easy version with just hammer-on and pull-off. Traditionally, we would just do one pull-off, so we would have and then 3 downstrokes. You know, so like this. I need some gain for this. Right, and yeah, you know, the left hand it's easy to get the basic shape, but the muting is quite hard. So it's easy on the other shapes, like, you know. Right, and you can, you know, just, you know, research all the different arpeggio shapes. There's so many, right? If I start showing you now, we'll be here until 3 a.m. And practice this technique and start, you know, switching between those arpeggios, and you know, and that's essentially how it's done, right? So you can do Yngwie kind of style, you know, these diminished arpeggios. You know, so it's all just 3-string arpeggios with the essentially with just the picking pattern that I just showed you, right? So quite easy to get. If you can also extend your arpeggios, right, by repeating notes, and go to literal strings as well. So we have. Right, and they can, you know, you don't have to do this up and down all the time. You can also like interrupt in the middle of the arpeggio and then change direction again. So it would be like a. That's quite hard. Stuff like that. So slow would be. I'd say that sweeping, again, it's a very impressive technique. I'm better with other techniques than sweeping, but I don't practice sweeping at all anymore, actually. I practice mostly legato. We'll come to that in a second. I practice a little bit of economy picking, 10 minutes a day, something like that. I don't really practice sweeping. If I would practice, would be better at it. But, you know, the amount of practice that needs to go into maintaining a basic sweeping skill is not too big, you know. So if I need my sweeping skills to be, again, you know, in shape, then I usually, you know, start practicing it again for a week or so, when I need to record an album or write solos or when I have sweeping in, but it's nothing that I would do on a daily basis, certainly. So someone wrote, I noticed you sometimes use a right hand finger along with your pick. Did you work on that technique? Now we're getting into my favorite technique. So that was a very great transition to go to legato. Legato is what we call Hammer-Ons Pull-Offs on the guitar. Well, there's a big fight about that. You know, I'm also teaching at university, and sometimes me and some other guys are fighting about what legato actually is. But let's keep that in university. So let me explain you the facts. Legato means that there's no interruption between the notes. So you can play that on other stringed instruments like the violin, also on the piano, whatever, flute, right? All these instruments are capable of legato, and you can't do Hammer-Ons Pull-Offs on a piano or the flute. So staccato, that's the opposite, means there's an interruption in between those notes. So staccato is legato, right? Is something like that. So we achieve the sound by using hammer-ons or pull-offs on the guitar. Because as we are picking, right, there's a lot of noise that we create through the pick movement. So try to reduce the pick movement to a minimum and to avoid creating that noise that can be perceived as an interruption in between the notes. And this is where we get close to legato. So some people say that hammer-ons only when you play with hammer-ons, right? That's true legato. Pull-offs have no space in legato playing on the guitar, right? So instead of going like hammer, let's get a very basic pattern. Right, so we're in A minor here. We do D string 7 9 10 hammer-ons. Then we go to the G string 7 9 10 hammer-ons, and we pull off to 9 and to 7 again. And then we do pull-offs 10 9 7 on the A string. Love that. Well, anyway, so I use hammer-ons and pull-offs. Some people say that you should play everything with pull-offs, with hammer-ons, sorry, because that's the only true way to play legato. So it would be right. If a pull-off means that, you know, the other finger has to be on the string already, kind of, because we're pulling off to it, right? But instead of having the finger waiting on the string, what we could do is come on. Well, imagine this, like, sorry, you know, I'm exaggerating here again. I'm not too good at this. I was better when I was younger, but this is kind of what it means to play hammers only. And I mean, there's certainly another sound to it. I can't say that this is, you know, some weird bullshit that doesn't make sense. I mean, there's a different sound to it, but I don't consider the difference too big if you're playing fast. And this is usually what rock and metal legato is about, right? About faster lines. You can also utilize this for slower lines as well, and throw in some hammer-ons for your melodies and whatnot as an expressive technique. But when you talk about shred, you want to get it fast, and it doesn't make too much of a difference, I'd say, when you play very, very fast. All right, so this is a lick that you know, I would practice if I was you. If you want to get into legato, practice it with your pick. So you just do a pick stroke on the D string. Do another one on the G string, and then you pick the D string again once you're changing strings. So you only pick the string when you're changing from one string to another and not in between. So something like, so that doesn't sound good. I mean, unnecessary amount of picking doesn't really sound good when you play hammer-ons and pull-offs, in my opinion, right? So this is all we do. Right, again, do some gain to activate the tube screamer to minimize the effect of the noise gate, and right, so that's one way to do it. Don't really like doing that. Don't really feel comfortable with that. And this is what Julian was mentioning, right? I sometimes use my my middle finger here, and this is called high rip picking. It's actually another picking technique, but I use it for legato. So instead of picking the G string, I plug it with a middle, and this is where I feel home. Kind of technique I practice a lot. So yeah, that is, in my opinion, you know, the best sounding guitar technique for shredding. I just really like the sound of legato. I like it when these fusion guys are doing it, like Rick Graham, like Guthrie, like Alex Hutchings, like Tom Quayle, like Nick Johnston, all these guys play a lot of great legato lines. I like it when the metal guys do it. You know, like, for example, rock and metal guys, let's put it that way. Like, for example, Richie Kotzen, like John Petrucci did this on a couple of tracks, which I really like In the Name of God or The Mirror from Dream Theater. You know, so I don't know. It's the fluidity. It's everything about the technique. They're very much like in the sound, and as I said, I do use it a lot. And this is a great lick to get started with it. You know, just that very simple. You can take that and play it everywhere on the floor. You can use your right hand to do some. Right, so it could show you lots and lots of patterns, right, that you could use to play legato, but that's a very essential one, and I'd start out practicing this, right? It's very good way to start it. All right, let's talk about the last technique for tonight, final technique, and that one is called tapping. Everyone knows tapping. Van Halen is what we associate with it. People say he invented it. Some say that he didn't invent it. There was a guy on the acoustic before. The acoustic guitar did tapping. I don't care. Van Halen is the tapping lord, in my opinion. Yeah, so like we all had this, right? Listening to Eruption for the first time, that was a wow moment, wasn't it? So tapping essentially is legato playing, because we extend the capacities of our left hand by using hammer-ons and pull-offs. So lots of tapping techniques, in theory, if we were able to stretch our left hand fingers, you know, unlimitedly, we would be able to play that with a left hand. So let's say something like right, that's a very, very simple lick. Need to turn off the noise gate. You will play that like this, right? Essentially the same notes. It sounds cooler when you do a tapped like it does sound cool when you do a tapped, I think. It has to do with kind of the velocity and the attack that the right hand can add to the guitar, but it's the same technique, hammer-ons and pull-offs. Yeah, there are also some versions of people who play Eruption alternate pick and stuff like this only with the left hand. So there are ways to do it. However, sometimes if the distance is too high, you can't even pretend that, you know, to do something similar with your left hand only. But you need your right hand for this, right? So let's play. Don't see any way to play that only with my left hand. So that is usually what I do use tapping for if the distance between notes is too high, for my left hand to cover it. So you can play very high intervals with this kind of technique. You know, tapping is something that you can play from quite easy to quite hard, as with the other techniques as well, obviously. So just these, Van Halen licks. I mean, love him, but it's 2026, so technically everyone understood what he did there and can quite easily recreate this kind of playing. He has some better licks than that. I'm not a Van Halen style player, but essentially it's quite easy for someone like me to just watch it and then recreate it somehow, right? If you want to play this kind of lines, right, what you can do is basically tap on a note. Let's go to the pentatonic. Tap on the 17th string of 17th fret of the with the middle finger of your right hand, because that way we can still keep the pick. I know he sometimes did it with his index finger. I would prefer the right hand's middle finger, so you don't have to drop the pick, right? Do the pull-off to the 15th fret, then another pull-off to the 12th fret. That's very easy to do. May look impressive for amateurs and non-guitar players, but it's quite easy to do. Essentially, good. Only with your left hand. Now, if you want to get into, let's say, a little more modern tapping, right, you should combine tapping with 3-note per string playing, and not only play like pentatonic kind of stuff, but maybe, for example, think about how to use it for arpeggios. Let me give you another example, which I think is a very cool exercise. So we're going back to 3-note per string, and let's go back to A minor. So we play the 8th fret, the 10th fret, and the 12th fret on the high E string, and then we tap the 17th fret, and then we do pull-offs, same notes. Right, this kind of stuff, right? And again, you can do lots of cool things with it. String skipping and then playing the same kind of lick in different octaves. I need my gain, but only with a noise gate. Right, and then again, the sky's the limit. You can do slides with it. So like this, you can tap different notes. You can, alternate the notes not only with the right hand, but also with. Use more than one finger on your right hand to tap. So, preferably middle finger, ring finger. What I do a lot. Don't have the fret rub right now, but yeah, this kind of stuff. This is some cool trick that I also learned from observing Guthrie. He's very, very good at it. And that's essentially legato playing, but with a range extender, which is your right hand. All right, let's sum this up. So we have alternate picking. We do this exercise. We had economy picking, and we did this. And we did this. Then we had sweep picking, and we did this. Then we had legato, and we did this. Then we had tapping, and we did this. right? And this is, it sounds, when I play it fast and stuff, it sounds quite difficult. But trust me, these are very, very essential exercises and licks that you should try to practice if you are, interested in developing essential skills for shred guitar. That's it for me. And if you guys still have questions, I'm going to spend some more minutes here in front of the computer to see if you guys need anything, because I don't want to leave you with question marks in your mind, right? I want you to understand everything. If you have any ambitions to learn this, I want you to feel comfortable when you get to practice. So let's give it a couple of more minutes. I'm going to play some guitar right now, and you guys, use the time to post your questions into the chat. You know what? What I do is I show you another video of me shredding, and I'll be back in a second, alright? Alright, that was a track that I made a couple of months ago for another Academy of Shred episode. I think there's also some shredding in there, so I thought, all the techniques, sweeping, legato, that may be something for you if you liked what we've talked about during the stream. All right, everyone. I think that's it. I've answered your questions. I've shown you what I wanted to show you, and yeah, I hope that if you are into this kind of style of playing, if you want to get into this kind of style, that this live stream, will help you to basically get started with it. There's another question. Wow, that's good timing because I was about to end this, but let's go for it. Is 30 minutes practice a day enough time to make headway with these techniques? Absolutely. So 30 minutes of focused practicing a day is a lot, right? So when I was younger, right, in my teens, going to school, having no responsibility, no family, no bills to pay, and a lot of time, I was playing a lot on guitar, right? Wasn't necessarily practicing all the time when I picked up the guitar. I also did practice a lot, but I was playing a lot. And I think, a couple of hours a day is what I did then. And it certainly helped to kind of skyrocket the skills in a short period of time. But once I got older, for the that past couple of years, right, I'm mostly practicing an hour a day. Now, I've developed these skills when I was younger, playing a lot. So the hour that I do per day is more of maintenance rather than developing. I mean, I could maybe put in more time and then get faster and cleaner or whatnot, but I'm somewhere I feel okay with the skills that I can maintain that way. So 30 minutes a day is half of what I do, and I make a living off this. And I mean, also playing a lot helps. And I play a lot. I record, I teach, I do sessions, gigs, and whatnot, right? So this also helps, obviously, to maintain your skills. But I'd say that if you have 30 minutes a day to practice, that's a very good amount of time for certainly getting into this, right? If you only have 30 minutes, I would try to, practice focused. Means that, close the door, not let anyone in there. You don't necessarily need to practice with a metronome, but practice slow and clean and focused, right? And if you do that, 30 minutes is great to start. Absolutely, yeah. All right, I hope I was able to answer that. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope you had a good time. And that's it for tonight. I'm going to say goodbye, and I see you very, very, very soon. Have a nice one.